The city skyline shimmered with the glow of endless ambition, its glass towers piercing the night sky like silent sentinels of power. Inside the tallest of these towers, a woman sat in a penthouse office, her presence as commanding as the empire she controlled. The CEO was known for her ruthless intelligence, her precision in every deal, and her uncanny ability to read people. But tonight, her confidence had taken on a different form. She sat across from an opponent who was entirely unexpected. In front of them sat a chessboard, its pieces poised for battle, and in the faint reflection of the window behind them, the quiet hum of the city seemed to wait in anticipation. "Beat me in chess and I'll marry you," she had said, her voice carrying both a challenge and a strange, almost unspoken longing. It wasn't just a game. It was something deeper, something that neither of them yet understood. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected encounters to change lives forever, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who loves heart-touching stories, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so you never miss a story that might inspire your heart. He was not the type of man who usually sat across from CEOs in private offices overlooking the city. A single dad, his world revolved around his young daughter and the modest cleaning job that paid their bills. His hands were calloused from years of work, his clothes simple, his demeanor humble. But his eyes held a quiet strength, a kind of intelligence that came not from books or business schools but from the long, hard lessons of life. He hadn't expected the invitation. It had started innocently enough, a spilled coffee in the hallway, a polite apology, a passing conversation that somehow led to him fixing a stuck window in her office. She had noticed something in him that night, an unusual calm, a patience that intrigued her. And then she had noticed the small travel chess set he carried in his backpack, a relic from a life he rarely spoke of. That was when she decided to test him. For her, the challenge was partly amusement, partly curiosity. She was a woman who had everything yet felt the hollowness of victories that came too easily. For him, the challenge was more complex. It wasn't about marriage, not really, it was about dignity, about showing that even those who came from nothing could stand on equal ground with someone at the top. As they sat facing each other, the room seemed to shrink, the walls fading away until there was only the soft clicking of chess pieces and the quiet, rhythmic beating of their hearts. But life hadn't been easy for him. Every move he made on the board carried echoes of nights he had gone without food so his daughter could eat, days he had walked miles in the rain because the bus fare was too high, moments when he had swallowed his pride just to keep a roof over their heads. His opponent, though she could never imagine that struggle, began to sense it in the way he played, not with arrogance, but with a kind of raw, unshakable determination. Every piece he moved seemed to carry the weight of the life he had lived. She, too, had her burdens, though hers were hidden behind luxury and power. Years of loneliness masked by corporate success, a string of failed relationships built on convenience rather than connection, and a heart that was far more fragile than anyone suspected. Perhaps that was why she made the challenge. Perhaps she wanted to see if someone could surprise her, someone who didn't approach her with fear or flattery but with honesty and skill. As the game progressed, her smirk began to fade, not because she was losing, but because she was beginning to see him in a way she hadn't seen anyone in years. The city outside sparkled like a dream, but inside that room, the tension grew heavier with every move. Pawns advanced with purpose, knights leapt with precision, bishops cut across the board like silent blades. He was patient, not rushing, not intimidated. And then, in a moment so swift she barely saw it coming, he cornered her king. 3 moves. That was all it took. 3 brilliant, calculated moves that ended the game. Her eyes widened, not in humiliation, but in something closer to awe. No one had ever defeated her so quickly, so decisively, and certainly not someone she had underestimated. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, instead of anger, a quiet smile touched her lips. She realized this wasn't about the game anymore. It was about the truth she had seen in him, the resilience, the strength, the refusal to be defined by circumstance. She had offered the challenge as a joke, a test, maybe even a trap. But what she found instead was respect, and perhaps something deeper. In the days that followed, she found reasons to call him back, not for another game, but for conversations that lingered long after the office lights dimmed. She asked about his life, about his daughter, about the kind of courage it took to start over every day despite the odds. He never boasted, never asked for anything. And that humility began to break through walls she had built around her own heart. What started as a challenge became a connection, and what began as a chess game became something much more profound. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, her guarded life began to shift. She found herself looking forward to his visits, to the moments of honesty in a world full of masks. And he, though cautious, began to see her not as the CEO but as a woman searching for meaning beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. It was in the quiet moments, the way she listened when he spoke about his daughter, the way he noticed when she was exhausted and brought her coffee without asking, that something real began to grow. But not everyone understood. Her friends questioned her. Her board doubted her judgment. People whispered that a CEO had no business involving herself with a man who cleaned floors for a living. The pressure mounted, the scrutiny became intense, and she began to wonder if she had been foolish to let him into her world. And yet, every time she looked at him, she saw the same unwavering strength she had seen that night on the chessboard. He had nothing to offer her in terms of wealth or status, but he had everything she truly needed: loyalty, honesty, and the kind of love that couldn't be bought. The final turning point came one stormy evening when her company faced a crisis that threatened everything she had built. As partners pulled away and advisors lost faith, he was the one who stood beside her, reminding her that she was more than her failures, that her worth wasn't defined by public opinion. In that moment, she realized that the game they had played months ago had been more than a game. It had been a glimpse into the kind of partnership she wanted for the rest of her life. Not a partnership built on deals, but on trust. By the time the crisis passed, she had made her decision. The challenge she had once given as a joke had become a promise she wanted to keep, not because he had beaten her in 3 moves, but because he had stood by her in ways no one else had. Their lives didn't suddenly become perfect. There were still challenges, still people who doubted them. But they had something rare, a connection that defied expectation and a love that had grown in the unlikeliest of places. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner for more true-to-life stories that remind us all of the power of resilience and love. Before we end, we have a special request for you. Comment below and tell